Charles Johnson is a single father who's currently suing Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles after his wife died during childbirth. This story is difficult. I'm just warning you guys before we toss to the video. But with that said, here is Charles Johnson explaining what happened to his wife.
I can see the Foley catheter coming from Kira's bedside begin to turn pink with blood.
He says doctors told them now 3-year-old Langston's birth would be a routine cesarean section.
I just held her by her hands. I said, please, look, my wife isn't doing well. And this woman looked me directly in my eyes and she said, sir, your wife just isn't a priority right now. It wasn't until 12:30 a.m. the next morning that they finally made the decision to take Kira back to surgery.
As critical minutes turned into hours, Johnson says he was continually ignored by staff at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles as Kira's health continued to suffer.
When they took Kira back to surgery and he opened her up, there were 3.5 liters of blood in her abdomen from where she had been allowed to bleed internally for almost 10 hours. And her heart stopped immediately.
Such a devastating story, but unfortunately it's not unique or isolated. This is actually a huge problem that is definitely prevalent among the African-American community. Now, Charles Johnson told CNN, I started to do research myself. I realized, oh my gosh, we're in the midst of a maternal mortality crisis that isn't just shameful for American standards, it's shameful on a global scale. So to give you a few statistics, America is the only developed country with a rising death rate for pregnant or new mothers. Approximately 700 of these women in the United States die each year. One of the richest countries in the world, and that's what happens. And one of the biggest issues is, much like Kira's case, when a woman needs help, especially a black woman, and says she's in pain or isn't feeling right, oftentimes that call for help will be ignored. And there are serious consequences to that. People literally die.
I think a lot of people forget that the medical community would do experiments on black people for centuries and essentially poke, prod, cut us open with this idea that we don't feel pain. And unfortunately, some of that has continued to press through to modern day medicine and medical care providers who continue to ignore women and especially black women when we let you know there is a problem, there's something I know. And we saw it with Serena Williams and her trying to explain to the doctors, no, I have a problem, there's something going on, and literally having to throw a fit before they actually listen to her. And that it really affects our daily lives and the possibility that we may end up admitted to a hospital in some way or some form, and hey, they're not gonna listen to us even though we're telling them there's something wrong.
Yeah, it's like in the hospital, if we're too hysteric, we don't get any help, or our pain is not treated as important. If we're too hysteric and the cops pull us over, we're dead. Like it's just, it goes to this thing you're saying, it's like, it's difficult just existing in this country as an African American sometimes, because it's like you're walking on eggshells just trying to be treated like a normal person. But like this is such an indictment on the healthcare system that like Republicans and a lot of Democrats are saying is the #1 healthcare system in the world, the one that produces the best outcomes. And this is happening. Cedars-Sinai is a really good hospital.
It is, it's one of the top hospitals, yes.
Yeah, they're a phenomenal hospital. Like there are doctors who work there who are sure fine, but like this happens in our healthcare system on a day-to-day basis. People say like, oh, but other countries, they wait for their care. People die waiting for their care here, and we do nothing about it. But no, God forbid we have socialist Bernie care. That'll ruin things.
No, and something also too, I think, is important to note that blacks, indigenous, and Alaska Native women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die during childbirth or as a result of pregnancy-related complications than white women. And it's because doctors don't listen to us. And just like a quick story, I went out on a date maybe 6 months ago, first date. I have no problem telling a man I want triplets. The man, his response is, it's probably for the best because of the high maternal mortality rate for black women. It's the only way just to do it once.
Oh my
because
God.
You can't risk doing it more than once as you may not survive.
It's an excellent pickup line, I'm gonna use that.
Please do, yeah.
Wow. Works anytime apparently.
Good way of breaking up the
oh my God.
depressing
When
stuff.
he said that to me, I was like, oh my God. Like he was down and he knew exactly why and why it was so important.
You want triplets?
Dude, I can only do it once because like if I go into a doctor's
Is that
office,
the only reason though?
Oh, well that, and they're like cute because they all look the same and you can like switch them up and
they look cute, but
And
3 of them.
I know, but what if one runs away? I have an insurance policy. 2 more, we're good.
Oh my God.
I just always imagine like in middle school, they just like switch them around and no one ever knows who's like, oh wait, is this the twin who's in class today, or did one of them playing hooky? It's a sitcom waiting to happen. Sorry, I needed light in this story.
No,
that Adrienne wants to
we did need that. But let me give you a few more facts about this. It's a broader look at what's going on. So there's a nonprofit that does research and activism in the field, and they came to more devastating, unfortunately, conclusions on this. Every Mother Counts says many of their deaths are because of unequal healthcare or the unequal healthcare system and systemic racism. Also, an expert in the field added, a well-educated African-American woman with more than a high school education has a 5-fold risk of death compared to a white woman with less than a high school education. So look, that might feel like a weird thing to bring up, but I think it's incredibly relevant because oftentimes when we talk about unfair treatment, it's seen through the lens of socioeconomic status, and that certainly plays a huge role. But even if you have 2 people with the same education, the same wealth, the same everything, there's still a problem in the way that people are perceived, certain groups of people are perceived. And so I want to plug this, even though I have issues with some of their reporting, but the New York Times wrote a very detailed feature on how Black women are most vulnerable to this. And it was just really well done. So please check that out. It was a good piece. And there are good reporters working at organizations that I don't necessarily agree with all the time. So take a look at that article and more.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.